Hello, everyone. So, as mentioned, my name is Jack Purdy. I am heading up biz development for Messari's protocol services, and I'm here to talk about stablecoins. Click. Click. And that's my presentation. Thank you. What do I do, Coney? Hey! Hey, there it is. Okay, so to provide some context why there's a BD guy from Messari here talking about stablecoins, a little context. So Messari as a whole, so we are a crypto market intelligence platform. It's kind of two sides of the business, the enterprise, traditional sort of financial SaaS product, and then protocol services, which is really my world and kind of what brought me here, as we've worked with Osmosis on that front. And so more specifically, like what is protocol services? Kind of like an outsourced investor relations research type function for DAOs, where we'll spend a lot of time going through on the data side, building out like a protocol level income statement to standardize major KPI fundamental metrics, and then provide the research layer on top of that to better contextualize the data. So recently we did a Q1 report for Osmosis, and that's kind of what I'm here to break down, and then with the specific angle around kind of what's going on in the stablecoin world for Osmosis. So starting off from kind of like the macro overview, looking at just like aggregate DEX volume, you can see that volumes really started picking up once Luna and UST kind of kicked things off, as that was like the first stablecoin in the ecosystem, and that's because like having that base pair is really like pivotal in any exchange ecosystem, as that's what most traders naturally want to like trade in and out of. And then as that ecosystem continued to grow, there was just a lot more assets in this universe with which to trade. So you can see, volumes really started kind of like taking off with the growth of crypto as a whole, but then also the Luna ecosystem, and kind of topped off right around the state of just like the top of the crypto markets, because again, once valuations collapse, less trading activity as to be expected. But then that ever so pretty spike up there, which we all know from the UST blow up. So I don't need to go into that too much, but as you can imagine, when there's a lot of money on the line and people are trying to get some liquidity on their assets that are quickly falling to zero, there's a lot of trading volume. But then since then, it's continued to kind of veer lower because there's been this like big absence now of that base stablecoin in the ecosystem. And so looking at liquidity kind of tells like a similar story where, rises pretty rapidly with the growth of Terra and then sharply falls off a cliff. But what you can see towards the end there is the beginnings of increased liquidity from these ERC20 stablecoins that we introduced with the Axelar bridge that is now allowing USDC, DAI, Frax to be able to be traded on Osmosis. So drilling in specifically into some stablecoin metrics. So for a fun little bit like here, Osmosis actually started having a Euro stablecoin, which kind of comprised 100% of the volume until we finally got a USD one. And as to be expected, USD reigns king and comprised the vast majority, as that is just like the most liquid asset in the world. And then looking at stablecoin volume in particular mirrors that of the aggregate assets, but drilling in a little bit on the post-UST world, you can kind of see what this new ecosystem of stablecoins is starting to look like. And USDC has started to take over. It's still, a fraction of what UST was. But then, you also have some of like the decentralized stablecoins, which are pretty big in the Ethereum world, now able to be ported over into Osmosis, but they just like haven't really taken off yet. So another chart just showing like the magnitude of this. So looking at like the peak liquidity of these assets. So USD at one point was $280 million, and that just more or less evaporated in the span of a couple days. And in comparison, looking at like the new world of stablecoins that are popping up are multiples lower. But again, it's only been a matter of weeks, so it's still a work in progress to get more of these assets into Osmosis. And so this is a pretty interesting chart looking at the return on assets of an Atom Osmo pool and then UST Osmo. And so return on assets, that's the fees that go to liquidity providers, LPs, over the amount of like overall liquidity in it. And so it's a good gauge of capital efficiency in these pools. So what's interesting is that stablecoin denominated pools are a lot more capital efficient because there's just more trading volume in and out of them, because more often than not, people, again, want to trade using stablecoins as opposed to two different volatile tokens. And so it becomes like a more attractive pool to LP in. I will note though, so this does not take into account impermanent loss, and there is higher impermanent loss when you have a stable asset and a volatile one, as opposed to two volatile assets that more or less trade in tandem, so have less like divergence. So kind of just the key takeaways from like our quarterly report and everything in this presentation. So like stablecoins are a really pivotal part of any exchange ecosystem, and Osmosis more or less had entirely just UST being that base asset, which opened up to a lot of risk on the fundamental level. And so when that went away, you kind of see exchange volume and liquidity dry up. But now that with the introduction of the Axelar bridge, being able to bring in more ERC20 tokens, like that opens up a massive opportunity of a lot of capital that can now start flowing into the Osmosis ecosystem and now fill that void that Luna and UST left in its wake. So I'd expect to kind of see USDC, Tether, a lot of the fiat collateralized ones, really increase in prevalence, but then also getting some more of the decentralized stablecoins that can actually, you can get like incentive structures to get them into the Cosmos ecosystem a bit more, to have a bit more resiliency there. And yeah, we'll be releasing our Q2 report end of July, so keep an eye out for that, for other good-looking, pretty charts from Messari.